Today, I'm going to share with you my Fujifilm x100vi accessories. Now, to be honest, I don't use a lot of accessories. I'm not the type of photographer to bling out his camera with a bunch of fancy stuff. I just keep to a very practical setup, and anything that gets in the way, I'll remove it. But today, I'll share with you guys not only my current setup, but accessories I have tried and what I think about them. And then you can see for yourself whether or not you want to use them. If that sounds good, let's get started. Soft shutter release. Out of the many accessories I've tried, a soft shutter release is up there in terms of importance. It's one of those things I feel like makes a real difference when taking photos. It makes things easier and more tactile to press down on, and I can feel the half shutter focus press better. Personally, I like the concave shutter releases. I like the indentation and feeling of the groove in my finger, but flatter and convex shutters also exist, it's just a matter of preference. Now, this doesn't happen often, but every now and then I'll lose one of these guys. And that's the only real problem. Even when screwing it on tight, they can sometimes come loose or I'll bump into stuff and realize I've lost it later. The good news is that they're fairly cheap and you can buy them in a pack to replace them if you lose them. Now, there do exist more expensive artisan soft shutter releases with nice designs and all of that stuff, but those can be quite pricey, so I tend to stay away from them. I've bought one in the past for my x100vi that I'm quite happy with, but that was the only one. It's wooden, well built, and even has this neat little bird design. I was a little remiss at the time for spending that much money on a little piece of wood, but hey, I still have it. It's served me well over the years, so maybe that says something. In general, I do prefer the feel and texture of wood shutter releases, but they tend to be more expensive than the plastic ones, so I've just stuck to the cheap ones for now. So that's what we have here, a black plastic soft shutter release for my Fujifilm x100vi. Moving on. UV filter plus adapter. As you guys know, for both the V and the 6, the cameras have weather sealing, but only with a UV filter attached. And to attach a UV filter, you need an adapter for the lens. So the simple adapter I use to attach a UV filter and other filters to my camera is the Hauji one. Now, I don't think brand necessarily matters in this case. You can buy whichever one you want and they should all work the same. You should also note that the V and the 6 both have the same lens, so you should be able to use adapters interchangeably. But this time, I needed a silver one. And finding a silver adapter for the 6 was quite easy, but finding a UV filter that was silver was much harder. Most UV filters come in black, understandably, but I didn't want my silver x100vi to look like that. So the closest thing I could find was this B&W filter, which is more of a gray instead. And I think technically this is a clear filter, not a UV filter, but whatever, it works. As for functionality, a UV filter allows for extra protection and weather sealing. Their original purpose was to help block UV light and protect your camera's sensor, but that matters far less for today's modern digital sensors. Some people debate the usefulness of having a UV filter. I personally like to have a UV filter on all my lenses at all times. And this is mainly for protection. For the V or the 6 specifically, I'd recommend to do so as well because they're not weather sealed without it. And it can be a hassle to take on and off if you're worried about splashes, if you're near rain, ocean, or a pool. And so for most other lenses, it's technically not necessary, but I just prefer to have one on anyways. People will say things like, why buy expensive glass just to put cheap glass in front of it? And my response is, you don't have to put cheap glass in front of it. If you're worried about image quality to that extent, just buy a quality UV filter and you'll be fine. Because if you're spending that much money on a lens, it's worth taking care of. For example, take a look at the UV filter on the front of my 50mm f2. I got this lens back in April and put a B&W filter on it almost immediately. And not even 2 weeks later, I looked at it and there were these big scratches on the front. So I'm guessing something must have shot out and hit my lens dead on. Interestingly enough, this doesn't actually affect the photos I take. The scratches don't even show up in the resulting images. But this one UV filter has saved me a lot of time and money. Because now, instead of having to replace the $250 to $300 lens, I just have to replace the filter. Now this is rare. It doesn't happen often, but for me, it makes it worth it. People also argue that you could just use a lens hood and that can serve as adequate protection. Now, personally, I don't prefer using lens hoods. I feel like they take up too much space. More on this later, but I see what they're saying. With a lens hood, you can bump into stuff and the hood will take the brunt of the damage. But it still doesn't prevent stuff from coming directly at the lens, and it still won't make your x100vi weather sealed. So the point is, if you've got a V or a 6, get an adapter and a UV filter. The weather sealing makes it worth it. For all your other lenses, it's a personal choice. I prefer a UV filter for the reasons stated above, but you can do whatever you want. Cinebloom filter. This is a cinebloom filter. It's the same one I got and used on my V many years ago. And thankfully they share the same lens and filter size, so I can just use this one on my 6. In essence, the cinebloom filter is just Moment's version of a diffusion or mist filter. Using this allows for softer highlights, halation, and whatever, all that other stuff. For the most part, I've been shooting without it to get a sense of what the 6's images look like standard, but I will start experimenting with the cinebloom filter soon. I think having a solid mist filter is nice every now and then to mix up the look of your images. This one I have is a 10% one, but I do believe there are stronger ones. Also, I do plan on getting CPL filters and other fun or practical filters to try out. It's just I haven't really needed that for most of my photography. Typically, I'll just stack these extra filters on top of my UV filter, but I do think you can swap them and your 6 will still be weather sealed, if you're worried about having too much glass on front of your glass. Alright, next. Camera strap. For the Fujifilm x100vi, I have two main camera straps I use. The first is Moment's leather camera strap. This is the same one I've been using for years on my V, and I simply transferred it over. The reason why I like this strap is not only the color, but the attachments. And too many times I've searched over and over for different camera straps that met my requirements. It had to look good, it had to be strong and durable enough so it doesn't drop my camera, of course, and it had to have easy to remove attachments that don't scratch the sides of my camera when used. The last one is pretty big. Since every camera has a different size and shape, it's tough to find a universal camera lug. And many camera straps come with their own lugs that have big metal rings on them. In terms of durability, these are fine, but I'm always worried that these might scratch and touch and damage my camera. Metal on metal scratching around as I turn my body with the camera on my waist. I don't even like thinking about it. Now, I'm not someone who's super uptight about protecting my cameras. You guys know my V has taken a lot of damage over the years. But if there's something I can do to prevent damage from occurring, I'll do it. Because more than the camera simply being expensive, these are the tools we use to create our art with. So I'm not the type of person to manhandle my cameras or throw it around or whatever. I think if we treat our cameras well, they'll treat us well. It's the same reason why I try to take good care of the books I own, because books represent more than just the paper they're printed on. They are a manifestation of knowledge, creativity, effort, etc. And for us photographers, our cameras are like our paintbrushes. So why would we mistreat them? Anyways, I got sidetracked. That's a whole nother discussion in itself. The point is, I wanted to find a camera lug plus strap combination that didn't scratch my camera unnecessarily. For the lugs, I've actually found these little fishing rings to work the best. They're strong enough to hold the weight of your camera and small enough to not touch the sides and scratch them. Similarly, many of the camera straps I like to use are actually phone camera straps. The Moment camera strap here is held by a small little string that hasn't ripped on me yet. Plus, I like this one because it's a quick slip on and off, so I can use it for different cameras without those peak design things. In addition, I also have this Ring K green camera strap I've been using. I like the color, and although the string is smaller, it seems to hold quite well. However, I don't use it as often because it takes longer to put on and remove if you're not using other camera straps with the same attachments. So those are the camera straps I'm currently using. I'm still searching around for similar straps of different styles so I can mix it up every now and then. But I'll have to update you guys in the future if I ever find such things. Miscellaneous accessories. Lens hood. I mentioned this earlier, but I don't use lens hoods. Most lens hoods are fairly light and practical for blocking out lens flares, but I personally don't feel like I need them. This is a particular thing of mine because I feel like they make my camera more higher profile. They make the camera itself take up more space, and they're kind of harder to move around my body. The extra space can make my 6 bump into the driver's seat and seatbelt of the car when I'm trying to get in and out, and it can make that process much harder. So this is kind of nitpicking. I don't have anything against lens hoods, I just don't personally prefer them. I do, however, have this YC Onion lens hood that I've been testing out. Personally, I've always liked the look and aesthetic of square lens hoods. And I think for the X100 line, a square lens hood looks great. This one in particular is quite light and matches the color of these 6. I did, however, find it a bit difficult to get the hood to line up with the camera. It seems you have to use their adapter, loosen it a little bit, and adjust their hood until it's straight, which means the system itself isn't fully tight, but it's straight. Otherwise, if you try to tighten it fully, the thing becomes crooked. You can also use a UV filter with this system, which is nice. This means that you can use this lens hood and still get the weather sealing for your camera. The only caveat is that you have to remove the lens hood first if you want to add or change filters. So that could be a downside. The hood also comes with a nice little lens cap that fits snug into the camera. Maybe even too snug. I personally found it a little hard to put on and off. But anyways, it's an interesting setup, one that's worth looking into if you want a square lens hood for your camera. I myself will be sticking to my UV filter plus adapter combo. Moving on, hand grip. In addition to the lens hood, YC Onion also has this half-size hand grip built specifically for the X100VI. It's nice, feels pretty solid, and fits well on the 6. This could be quite useful if you're someone with big hands and needs a better hold on the camera. Personally, my hands aren't that big, so I haven't felt myself really needing an extra grip like this. And it does add a bit of size and profile to the camera, so I've opted not to use it to keep my 6 more minimal. But it's a good accessory and can come in handy if you have bigger hands or need the extra grip. Thumb grip. YC Onion also has this little thumb grip available for the X100VI. And out of all 3 accessories, I found this one to be the most useful. I had always kind of questioned why people use thumb grips because I personally felt like I never needed one. But the thing about the 6, and you'll hear me talk about this in the full review, is that it's heavier than the V. It's got this whole IBIS mechanism inside, which might not be noticeable to some, but I can definitely tell. And it's a little harder and heavier on my wrist when I'm trying to pull it up quickly to point and shoot. The thumb grip actually helps with this. Because the 6 is a sleek camera, it doesn't have many grooves and there isn't much to grab onto. So having something there for your thumb just makes it easier to leverage. And you can argue that the hand grip does the same thing. It's personal preference and it's up to you which one you want to use. Personally, I like the thumb grip more, it feels better and is smaller. The only problem would be that it does get in the way of the shutter speed and ISO dial. YC Onion tried to compensate for this with this groove here, but it still does get in the way and makes it harder to change my settings. So that's my only real complaint. Also, pre-production models have been noted to be a bit more loose, so take note of that. Which, unfortunately, that's the one I have. This looseness makes the grip slip out of the hot shoe, which kind of sucks for practical use. It ironically means that out of the 3 accessories, this one being the one I like the most, I won't be using any of them. But that's okay. Hopefully this gave you some insight if you were thinking about getting one of these for your 6. So to sum it up, my current accessories are a UV filter plus the adapter for the weather sealing, a cinebloom filter, a soft shutter release, and a camera strap. Pretty simple and pretty minimal. And a screen protector technically, but that's it. I hope you found this video helpful and hopefully it gave you some insight on what accessories you can get for your camera. Stay tuned for my full long-term review of the X100VI. I don't know when it's going to be done, but it's coming. And if you like photo books, please do check out my latest photography zine, The Sinking Sun. You can get a free 4x6 print while you're at it. Thanks for watching as always. Have a great day. I'll see you later. Peace.